Welcome back to the second Ricelog! I'm Saria, aka Animal of the Elements, lead character designer and animator here at Friend Rice Studios. Today we're going to take a brief look at the creation of the tutorial boss who will be available in the demo for Pirouette Princess, and also talk about how we landed on the current look for the game. Our first boss that you fight at the end of the tutorial is the first Muse, Breakdance Bunny Mel. Each muse is based off of a form of art or music, and as you can guess, Mel is based off of hip-hop and breakdancing. She attacks the player by jumping around the stage and sending energy projectiles via flares. That's the specific breakdance move where you spin your legs and your arms, like that. Because of the emphasis on her legs, the one thing I was sure of were the cargo pants that draw attention to them, with like the big, chunky belt. And the sunglasses on her face to show how much of a douchebag she is. She's not nice. That and the glasses are where her muse powers come from, in the same way that Addie's wand is where her powers are from. As per usual, color continues to be a pain. Her base is orange, that one's for certain. Her accessories are gold, and I want her glasses and pants to stand out. We started with a couple colors that match with the orange, like reds, blues, and greens, and went to mixing and matching. I'll admit, I was super into this look with the white jacket and blue with the bright red glasses, but it didn't quite hit the same way with the rest of the team. Eventually, we took a page out of Pokemon's Malva and went with the black jacket with red accents. Add a screen tone effect to the glasses to make them more special, and our first boss is done. Now, before we get into, final thoughts and all that, I am gonna actually quickly go over the process we went through for landing on the current look for Pirouette Princess. To start, we're sticking close to what my typical art style is, albeit with proportions a little more squat and chunky. I then color and render based on what I normally do, which is like this. Now, I have changed my render style since I drew this like a year ago, but a lot of the elements still hold true, which is the fact that I tend to render with an environment in mind. So I end up putting in like a lot of effects that make it look more atmospheric, but it doesn't really look good in a visual novel format where the portrait should be able to stand on its own and not distract from. Basically, if you already like draw with an atmosphere in mind, but then you put it in a game where the atmosphere behind it is constantly changing, yeah, no, it's not gonna work out. From here, I picked out a couple games that Pirouette Princess was heavily influenced by and tried to directly replicate the coloring style. So I took a look at Azure Striker Gunvolt, Mega Man 11, and River City Girls. Azure Striker, at least in its first game, is pretty bold in that you got clear, light, mid-tone, and shadows, with shadows and lighting being pretty chunky. You also emphasize certain textures and elements with near solid black shading, and have an overall warm palette, or I guess to be more accurate, a soft palette. Mega Man 11 has strong gradients with minimal soft brush lighting. Shading is also done with blue, like a blue or purple, across the whole image, with the exception of skin, which appears to be shaded with like an orange or a brown. River City Girls has somehow the simplest and most complicated coloring, with little to no gradients except in the hair, black shading under the chin, and colored lines where the same materials overlap, like in the ruffles of the skirt. Each color also has their own shade instead of one overall color like with the Mega Man Blue examples. Which means I have each color get its own shading layer. Yes, this is why the characters in Pirouette Princess only have like 5 colors. If there's any more, the layers become a mess and a problem, and I hate it. To best decide what we liked, I also put them against the game graphics to make sure they match. The elements that stood out to us were Azure Striker's chunkier shadows and spot black shading, the textured line art and the saturation of the colors in River City Girls, and the gradients in Mega Man. I put these elements together as well as my own stylings, normally in the eyes and the adjustment layers, and landed with our final look. It's not perfectly consistent, and it has changed slightly as I worked on the cutscenes and the character art over time, but it provided us with our base that all future renders will look like. I hope now when you watch the speed paints you get a bit of a better idea of what's actually happening, though it's probably still going too fast for anyone to notice, but I hope it helps you get a better eye of how you pick apart style. By the way, if you're just, if you're going to do line art testing and like testing different styles with different line art, and you work in Clip Studio Paint, you definitely want to make sure your line art layer is a vector layer, because you can just like select your line art and then change the brush in the settings menu without having to constantly redraw the same thing with different brushes. It's really useful. That's why I always line art in Clip Studio with vectors. It does make your file size a little bit bigger, but like I think it's totally worth it. Next time, we're going to cover the creation of a rival character. She's a reoccurring muse that takes the role of the rival, and while she isn't in the main muse lineup with like a stage and level, I figured it'd be fitting to go over her sooner rather than later, considering it's Pride Month. We will see you next time when we cover Addie's magical girl rival, Evil X Nem. See you then.